Hey YouTube, welcome back to Universe X, and we are less than a singular day away from the network test, or open beta if you like to call it that, for Dragon Ball Gekishin Squadra, and I am so excited to play this game. So excited, in fact, that I decided to make a video going over the top 4 comps that I think are going to have the highest amount of compatibility and give the most explosive yield to results in terms of like mileage for their passives, their skills, and overall advantage over your opposing laners. And what do I mean by that? Well, in a game like this, a MOBA where you have multiple lanes and you need to push advantage forward to destroy your opponent's towers, or in this case, gods of destruction, you need to make sure that your characters synergize in both strategy and roles, and that's going to be the most important choice you make the moment you start the game. So you have 3 types of characters in this game. The first kind of character in this game is actually going to be the tank character, and the tank character is going to be able to soak up massive amounts of damage, but they're also going to have disruption abilities to make sure that the squishier members of your team get hit less and less. So it's pretty cool, actually. They all will have different ways of mitigating this damage. Like, you have some people like Zamasu, who's going to have a passive regeneration as well as a conditional revive to make sure he can sustain. Then you have people like Vegeta, who's going to gain an armor bar until he essentially has a second, almost third bar of health, if the beta still serves me correctly on memory. And then on top of that, you have characters like Caulifla that are going to add provoke to other characters so that they statically do less damage to her as long as they have the debuff. Either way, all tanks are going to have ways to mitigate the damage so they can stay in the fight longer and continue to disrupt the opponent. Why do you need to disrupt your opponent though? Because you have squishier characters like the damage character, and I don't think I gotta explain why the damage character is called the damage character. It's kind of self-explanatory, but they will all do damage, and on top of that, they do it well. They are probably going to be the highest hitting characters in the game, unless Zamasu got nerfed from the beta, because that dude was ridiculous, let's face it. However, you have all sorts of ways to do damage, all sorts of ways to increase your damage output, and they're all going to operate differently, but their purpose is the same. Whether you're Dabura hitting people with the petrification until they're frozen and then you can slam them for more damage, or whether you're Android 18 and you need to be able to hit people successfully over and over and over again to rack up her damage increase, or you can be a Piccolo who will temporarily reduce his cooldowns by hitting with rush attacks. All of these characters will be able to put out crazy amounts of damage as long as you keep them safe and healthy and, you know, generally unobstructed. And that's what the tanks are going to be for. But you can also keep them healthy by using the tactician type character. These characters are going to be the most interesting in my opinion because they operate completely differently from character to character. Whether you have a ally buffing character like Gohan who levels up into a DPSing support, or maybe you even have a support like Majin Buu who heals, who actually pins down characters and widens their hitboxes. It's absolutely crazy what these guys can do. Frieza, who is going to be able to just buff other characters as well as pushing back other characters, as well as even landing with a massive nuke of his own. There are lots of ways that tacticians play, and knowing these types of characters and being able to match them accordingly is going to be how you win the game in Dragon Ball Gekishin Squadra. Now take note, every time in this video from this moment forward that I should have said technical, I'm gonna say tactician. While I won't change the meaning of the video, it will change the amount of shame that I feel every time I hear it. Alright, let's keep going. So the first duo that I would like to test out is actually going to be the damage character, Super Oob, for his unrelenting damage, his supreme damage output it looks like, as well as the tactician character, Majin Buu Good, and the effects that come off of both of their supers that looks like it actually may have some surprising synergy. So let's get into it. Okay, so we're going to talk about Oob real quick. I'm going to be very brief. I'm not going to go into too many of the skills because I have an entire breakdown for every single character. You just go down in the description and check out the playlist. You can go into any character in depth that they revealed so far. But moving into this, we've got Super Oob. He's just a damage dealing character, flat damage, but it looks like it's going to be significant damage. Like, he doesn't have much utility, and I think the trade-off for that at least should be high amounts of damage. But going into his passive, the gist of it is that you're going to have Cyclone, which is a resource that you're going to build with certain moves, and certain moves are going to deal more damage based off of how many stacks of Cyclone you have. But in short, you're going to deplete it by using rush attacks, because those rush attacks will have more damage attached to them as long as you have Cyclone, and then it also depletes over time. So the best way to pump out damage with Oob is to have unhindered just phases of DPS where you are not getting hit, you're not being slowed, you're not being staggered, and you're just pumping out the DPS. And I think that Majin Buu Good has the best tool set to help Oob do this. Now, moving past that, you're gonna note that his skill 1 Rage Barrage is a skill shot cone, so you'll have to aim that and you'll have to land that. You can see the area of effect right there. And then moving past that, you have his skill 3, which is going to be his shooting chaser, and it's going to be a dash. That dash can hit multiple people at the same time, and this is gonna come into play even more so when you have Majin Buu in the mix. Now, going over to his super attack. This super attack is going to do damage, it's going to deal more damage based on how many Cyclone stacks you have, but the most important thing here is enemy heroes below a certain amount of HP when hit will be inflicted with the candy status. And when you look at this, you can see that the candy status is a giant floating sundae. Now this is going to come into play, again, going into Majin Buu's kit, so how about we hop over there and I'll show you how this all comes together. Okay, now looking at Majin Buu Good's kit, he is going to be able to heal, but he's also going to be able to pin people down, and he's got a really cool super attack, which I think is going to gain a lot of synergy, if I'm correct about this theory. There's also just pretty much the fact that all of his kit goes hand in hand with how Oob's supposed to play. So with the Majin Menace, you've got the gain stock when healing yourself for allied heroes, and then when you apply debuffs to enemy heroes as well, he's going to gain damage by consuming the stocks during his rush attack, so he's going to be able to add on a little bit to Oob's already hopefully great damage. Now, moving past that, you actually have the fact that his skill 1 is Strangle Gum. You throw an Ensnaring Gum, applies all attack down and movement speed to to enemies that are caught by it, and then also causes their hitbox to expand. So the cool thing about this is going to apply a debuff. It's going to boost Majin Buu's stat or his attack because, or of his damage of his rush moves, because you applied a debuff. You got a charge, and then on top of that, increases the hitbox. By keeping them in a singular place, you're going to make Oob's skill 1 and skill 3 easier to hit. And if there are multiple people fighting in this team fight, if you hit somebody with Strangle Gum, it makes it easier for Oob to 2-for-1 people with his skill 3, because one of them will have an expanded hitbox and the other one you can aim closer to, knowing you're going to clip the expanded hitbox. Peak synergy right there. But you also have the Healing Ray, and the Healing Ray is going to keep Oob nice and healthy. This pretty much is with any character you use Healing Ray on, but of course keeping Oob healthy is going to allow him to sit there and spam attacks more, which is going to allow him to do a lot more DPS. And then you move on to the skill 3, Ready Go. It says attack while moving, apply strike defense up to yourself, applies no skills to enemies you hit, and forcibly moves them. This is going to bounce people further away from the super Oob, while making it so they can't use their skills to close the distance or potentially harm Oob further. So this is going to be great when you're just trying to get characters destroyed by Oob in the lane. You can also probably backpack them, which go around them and hit them from the back, pause, and knock them closer to Oob when you know you're going in for the kill and you don't want them to escape. Now, the last part here is going to be a super attack, and this is the part where I think has the most synergy. Candy Ray is going to fire a beam that turns enemy heroes into candy, creates an AoE that heals the HP of yourself and ally heroes, and then the more enemies you turn into candy, the greater the healing effect. Now, the crazy part is, when he turns them into candy, that's the same animation that Oob does when he turns people into candy. And then watch this. Buu walks over to it and eats the sundae. There a little bit of time passes, and then he spits them out. So what we've got here is 1 Mississippi. Well, if we play it in real time, right? From when 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi. So it looks like almost 3 seconds that they're in Buu before they get spat out again. If this is the case, if Oob turns people into candy that Oob or Majin Buu, or any other character for that matter, can consume, this can make some really great synergy in terms of healing, in terms of crowd control, and even taking entire players off the map for a split second while you apply damage to other people and then maybe finish them off when they come out, because they have to be at a low enough HP to be turned into candy by Oob. So I think this could be some pretty cool synergy, but only time will tell. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Now, the second duo that I would like to test out once this game drops is actually going to be the tank character Super Saiyan Vegeta, due to his amazing ability to control the placement of your opponent, partnered with the damage character Full Power Bojack, because of how many powerful moves he has that actually require specific placements of your enemies. So let's actually talk about their kits and why I think they synergize so well. Okay, so looking at Vegeta, his passive really doesn't come into play here. It's realistically just his moveset, and I mean all 4 of them. You have skill 1, consecutive energy blast, and the important part about this is you're gonna gain armor from connecting, but it's an energy blast that can be shot from a range. This is actually very, very important, and we'll get into this a little later. And then you also have his skill 2, Photon Bomber, and Photon Bomber is going to fire a blast in a specific point that you click, and it's going to draw people towards the center. In fact, when you watch it, look how close, or look how far away it is, and it just drags the enemy in the middle. This is also going to be very important, along with the fact that it's an energy attack. Then you go over to his skill 3, which is also an energy attack. It's going to gain armor when you hit enemies with it, but it's also going to push people away. And that's very, 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 very important as well. So then you have his last attack, which is Big Bang Attack. It's the least important one of these so far, but it's just going to fire an energy blast, cause the mass explosion, gains armor, recovers your armor when it hits an enemy. So that's pretty cool. Now, the main things you need to take away from this is that all 4 of his attacks are energy attacks. 2 of them, well actually 3 of them, will give him armor or recover armor on hit. And then the last but not least part of this is that you have a move that drags people inward and a move that pushes people outward. So now let's go over to Bojack and let me show you how these synergize extremely well. So going over to Bojack, you can pretty much skip over his passive, and you can skip over his first skill. His first skill is just energy blast. His passive says his goons hop in when he's using rush attacks, right? And when it comes to his skill 2, this is where we start. You're gonna scatter energy blasts, and they're gonna explode when hit by an energy attack from the enemy or ally hero, and then or after a certain amount of time passes. But you can move and change direction while using the skill. What this means is when you lay this out, Vegeta can come through and use his skill 1 consecutive energy blast through here, and you can hit the enemy, gaining your armor while detonating these for additional damage. You can also maybe even hit them with explosive wave to push them further back. You gain armor and they get dragged to these blasts, and since you use an energy blast, you're gonna probably detonate them if I'm reading this correctly. And then you also have Photon Bomber, which is going to drag them in, but as an energy attack, it's going to set these off. Big Bang will set these off too. So all 4 of Vegeta's moves will set off Cosmic Bloom. Now, the next thing I wanted to actually go on about, because you can see how the detonations work here. Yeah, so the next thing I wanted to go about is actually the Psycho Thread. So with the Psycho Thread, you're going to call upon your subordinates, and they're going to send out threads of energy, applies movement speed down, and it damages enemies within the AoE. Subordinates will retreat if damaged, but their number will increase according to the level of the skill, and after dealing continuous damage, the additional explosions will occur based on the number of subordinates remaining. So if you use Psycho Thread and your Vegeta laning partner uses Photon Bomber in the middle of here, you will drag your opponent towards the middle, where they will keep taking AoE damage. Their movement speed will be down, and it'll be harder for them to get out to the circle to attack the subordinates, leading to the highest possible yield in damage when they cause additional explosions. So I think Photon Bomber and Psycho Thread are just like a match made in heaven. And then speaking of Photon Bomber being destructive, Bojack's main attack, his super attack, Giga Grand Smasher. Call upon your subordinates to fire 5 energy blasts, and after a set amount of time, the energy blast will converge at the center. So looking at this, if you hit your opponent with or the group even, if this is in a team fight, you hit them with the Photon Bomber, they will be in the middle as these 5 beams coalesce to become one destructive, suspiciously shaped beam that will hopefully destroy your entire opposing team, and that's literally what's about to happen here. So yeah, give them the beam. But no, for real, this is looking to be some very, very good synergy between Bojack and Vegeta. You have a master of tactical placement of the enemy, followed by a guy that requires very specific placements, and then the ability to trigger his skill 2. So I think that Bojack and Vegeta should be a really, really cool pair to use together. Yeah, now let's move on to the next one. Now the next pair that I want to focus on is actually going to be the damage character Dabura, who has a very unique mechanic with his petrification that requires you to be near your opponent and constantly using moves on them as well, alongside of the tank character Baby Young Body, because he's going to actually be able to add lifesteal to an ally, which should increase your sustain and how long you can stay around your opponent to get that meter up, as well as actually having a couple moves that help with placement too. So let's hop into those kits and let's talk about why I think they're going to be really good together. Alrighty then, so let's talk about Dabura. I think this is going to be very, very spicy if it works out. Dabura has a really cool meter called the petrification meter. Once you're in range, it'll constantly build, and some of your moves will add on to it. But once it's full, you can use a rush attack on your enemy to petrify them, which is going to stop their movement and increase your damage against them while they're petrified. So to do this, you're gonna have to stay in your opponent's face. And Dabura has a bunch of moves, well, a bunch of effects that increases movement speed, or, you know, like towards opponents, he essentially marks them. And this is going to be something that's pretty cool. But we're going to talk about why Baby, I think, makes it exponentially better. Now, looking at these moves, you said this blow up target enemy. If the attack hits an enemy, it fills their petrification gauge, and the lower the gauge is, the more petrification will be applied. So it's a great opener, and then it generates an aftershock ahead of you. So that's pretty cool. Then you have the Dooms. You have the Darkness Spear, which is going to throw out spears, no vanishing step to the enemy heroes that they hit. So you're going to pretty much entrap them, which is pretty cool. And then you gain movement speed up when approaching a hero that has been hit by this skill. You got Evil Flame that's gonna inflict movement speed down to enemies hit. Basically all these things to speed you up or slow them down so that you can stay within range. All right, and then the last thing you have here is the Evil Blast, which is just gonna fill the petrification gauge on enemies hit so you can petrify them easier. Now a lot of people will be like, okay, well, you just pair him up with a tank, right? Well, not quite, because the tank doesn't really stop Dabura from being hit, and the tank doesn't necessarily ensure that the people are going to be next to Dabura. Dabura's kit allows him to be closer to his opponents by slowing them down or speeding them up. So I think that Baby actually complements him the best, and we're going to talk about why. Okay, so moving on to Baby, we have the ability to basically possess people and a couple of really cool things of utility that I think are really going to help Dabura's kit. So the passive possession enemies possess a target enemy hero when you land a finisher. You can use some of their skills while they are possessed. Possession effects end when the target respawns or when their HP is depleted. I think this one is going to be the hardest one to land when landing with Dabura, because you're going to have to get really good at last hitting. It'll probably be much, much better when you're actually like on Discord or somebody, you're working in tandem with somebody you know, because you can pull off the damage right before they die as Dabura and let your opponent, or let your laning partner Baby, get the last blow, the killing blow. And you're just gonna have to accept that you're not getting the killing blows, but your team is going off better because of it. Now, so that's gonna be something pretty cool. You can see the possession happens and you kind of get some extra mileage, or you can use some skills. That's pretty tight. But going over here, you have the Finger Blitz Barrage. Unleash an AoE attack in a targeted direction. Enemies hit will be forcibly moved. Can move while using the skill. So this is going to be good if you make a pincer attack. Dabura is attacking the opponents. You get on the other side of the opponent and you push them further into Dabura, making it harder for them to move because they'll be either pinned between your tower and Dabura, so they'll have to backtrack. And this might give just enough time for the petrification meter to get to max. Now, going past that, you have Energy Explosion, where you're going to release an AoE attack, continuous AoE attack around yourself, gain strike defense up, and then each time the attack hits an enemy hero, cooldown of possession allies will decrease. This is important because I think cooldown for possession allies is going to be something that you need to manage when you're doing this duo. Now, going over to the next one, possession allies / backup fire. You possess a target ally, apply lifesteal to the possessed hero, and then your HP will replenish over time. You can use backup fire to attack enemies. The HP of the possessed ally will recover when backup fire hits an enemy. This is good, because if you possess Dabura, he's already a DPS character, you give him lifesteal. This should be like a little Zamasu effect. He is going to heal, and then backup fire is going to heal him further. This means that Dabura can stay in lane longer and hug your opponent as long as possible to get them to the petrification status so that you may then destroy them. I think this is actually exactly why I love them so much, theoretically, as a laning duo. And then the last thing you have is the Revenge Blast, which Doesn't really do too much for the synergy, but it's just really cool that you can lay all this damage on and then potentially just hit them with the Revenge Blast to get an AoE kill after Dabura has laid the absolute pain on people. So yeah, I do believe that this is going to work, but I do want to try this out. This is probably going to be the hardest comp to test because it will require the most coordination between the two players. So it's probably not going to be something you do with a random queue, but more like a friend group that you're playing with, or at least one other friend that you're specifically laning with. Hey there. If you're still watching, chances are you like the video, and if that's the case, you should go down and like the video, and maybe even subscribe for future Dragon Ball Gekishin Squadra content. Alright, let's get back into it. Now, the final pair may be personal preference, bias, say what you will, but I am a Gohan stan, and when I read Tactician Gohan kit, I just felt like, I really felt like his kit was tailor-made to support the strategy of damage character Piccolo. Like, Piccolo is going to lay down so much damage, it's all energy based, and when you look at their combined kits, I think you're gonna find something very, very special. So let's go into why I think that. And now we're at Gohan, so you basically have a technical character, and I just think his kit was tailor-made to help Piccolo. Like, it makes sense lore-wise, but you got the friendship boost. You're going to give an all defense up and apply all attack up to the ally hero. So next to Piccolo, you're going to be able to boost his attack, and he's already a damage character. So this is going to be great output. Then you've got Masenko. This is obviously really, really good for range characters because you're going to keep people out of your face. The Masenko is going to forcibly move people back. You can see the great range that has, and that's going to allow Gohan to keep people at distance so Piccolo can just pelt them with his rush attacks as well as his long distance moves. The next one is the Masenkyaku, and this is the rushing forward and Alicia Roundhouse kick. Charging its attack will increase its range, its damage, and when fully charged, it will stagger the enemy on hit. When not fully charged, it applies no skills to the enemy on hit. So at the very minimum, you're going to prevent your opponent from being able to lay significant damage on you two, but at maximum, you're actually going to stun them, which can set up for most of Piccolo's moves and even a fully charged special beam cannon, which is going to be devastating in terms of damage. And then you have this Leave This to Me, which is the last effective move that's going to do something special when it comes to the synergy between them two. But Leave This to Me, choose a single ally hero and warp to them. Apply energy defense up to yourself and the chosen ally hero. And then after warping, create a barrier centered around yourself, and within the barrier, you and the allied hero additionally gain energy defense up, and enemies are afflicted with energy defense down. This has a really funny switcheroo effect with Piccolo's S3, and we'll get to that when we explain his kit. But the energy defense down is going to be great because all of Piccolo's moves are energy defense, they're energy attacks. So you're basically just giving Piccolo another attack boost. If you already have the friendship boost near, you're just going to be doing buku damage with Piccolo, and that's what we like to see. The last move doesn't really do a terrible amount. It's just pretty much damage for you. It applies strike attack up to ally heroes within the AoE for a limited time, but that doesn't really have anything to do with Piccolo, so I'm just going to choose to ignore this part. And yeah, this last part though, Shattering Beam, is actually pretty cool. It can be used while Exploding Rage is active. Charge forward and perform a kick, followed by causing a large energy explosion on the spot. Enemies hit by the initial kick will be staggered. So if you can time this right, your opponent can charge up a special beam cannon, and you can engage with the Exploding Rage into Shattering Beam, and your opponent can be hit by not only your Shattering Beam, but your Piccolo's special beam cannon for massive damage. So now let's go over to Piccolo and explain how his kit just goes hand in hand with Gohan's. Okay, so Piccolo is a range damage character, and when you look at his kit, you got the passive Ready for Victory, which is going to temporarily lower your cooldowns on moves by attacking enemies with the rush attack. So the more that you can just hit with these attacks, the better. And Gohan, as we saw, has a kit that staggers, has a kit that moves people away, and he can actually warp to you as well and increase the damage that Piccolo is going to be doing while decreasing the damage that Piccolo is going to be taking. So this is actually really, really, really good just right off the rip. Now over here you've got Light Grenade, fire a powerful energy blast, and at level 2 the explosion will occur at the point of impact. Damage and AoE explosion increases the further away the target is, so Gohan being able to keep them further away with Masenko can be a 1-2 punch. Masenko them away, Light Grenade them after that. Bam bam, wombo combo. The next card, well, the next card, I'm so used to doing TCGs, man. The next skill is Demonic Floating Blast, and it's just going to fire these energy blasts upward that drop down on an approaching enemy. Once you do space them, you can use Demonic Floating Blast to actually just hit them as they try to close the gap. And on top of that, they explode after falling, applying movement speed down. Enemies hit an explosion, allowing you to run away from them and get more damage in, or have Gohan deal with them. And then you have the skill 3, which is Magic Whip Fist. One thing that you can end up doing with this is when they get too close to the point where they can start really laying some damage on you and you want to escape that, you can have Piccolo, or you can have Gohan warp to him, give that area of effect, and then you can have Piccolo Magic Whip Fist out of the area so that you effectively trade places. Gohan warps to you, you hit the whip elsewhere, and then you can start pelting them again with damage from afar. So that's pretty cool. And the next rush attack you release is going to be a powerful energy blast with a powerful energy blast that's boosted, so that's going to be pretty cool. And then last but not least, you have Special Beam Cannon, which says you're going to fire a beam of energy that penetrates the enemies and walls. Holding down the attack button will expend multiple stocks. The more stocks that are used, the higher the damage and the range. This is great because Gohan has 2 moves that can stagger the opponent and lock them in. So if you start charging with the Special Beam Cannon and you know, especially if you're in voice chat and you can let your partner know, hey, I'm about to go in with my ult or my super, you can charge the Special Beam Cannon. Gohan can line up a stagger, lock your opponent in, you can hit them for maximum damage. Yeah, it's canon. Best duo right here. I really do think that their kits were made with each other in mind, and I love it. So overall, for all of these reasons, these are the top 4 duo comps that I'm most excited to try out. Of course, as we get to play the game, I'm probably going to see whether these work, don't work, or if there are other pairings that seem even more crazy in terms of synergy. So yeah, let me know down in the comments what you guys think is going to work. Let me know what you guys think of the pairings that I was talking about today, and I am super excited to play this game later tonight. We will be live streaming it, so if you want to see that content, make sure you subscribe and be back here at 2 a.m. Eastern, or just watch the vlog later. Either way, I'll be happy to see you there, and maybe I'll even see you in game. Thanks. Later.